Oh, hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 31 of Death Note. I woke up this morning and I was like, what do I want to do? I want to watch Death Note. I didn't watch this the day after episode 30. I know when episode 30 ended, I was like, going to watch it the next day, and then I got busy. So it's been several days since then, about a week actually. So I'm watching this pretty much on schedule, even though I was very tempted to watch ahead. But I wanted to wait and see if I got any comments for episodes 29 and 30, and I did. So we're going to talk about those. But man, last episode, it's weird. I'm kind of conflicted because I feel worried for Nier. I don't want Nier to die yet, but it seems like he's cornered up against a wall. But then I'm like, I know how this show works at this point, and so I'm like, I know that maybe Nier's gonna get out of there somehow, or maybe not. Maybe he dies. Maybe this is the end of Nier, and then we're just left with Mello. I don't know. That this show, up until Elle died, I was like, oh, well, he'll be fine. He'll get out of there. No worries. I'm worried about him, but he'll be fine. But now I don't know. They could just kill off Nier. We have 7 episodes left. 7. So, at this point, I do want to say, before I get into the comments, that I am being super cautious with comments, like hyper paranoid, because in other series, I've had some things spoiled, and it's made me really, really sad about people trying to spoil. And I know a lot of people, like with Light, have good intentions. They're like, oh, I'm just trying to explain things. I've said several times in the comments and in these videos, I don't want explanations, I don't want hints, clues, I don't want comparisons to the manga, because I'm going to eventually read the manga on my own time and talk about it. I don't want anything that is like, we can talk about the episodes and and about the character philosophies and things like that, but I just don't want things that would be spoilery for stuff yet to come. So if I see a comment that I remotely think is headed that direction, I just won't read it. And I know some people might be mad because they're like, oh, my comment's not spoiling you. I've just got to be cautious. I know there's several people that have commented since the beginning that I know are likely not to spoil, and so I trust them. And so I'm like, okay, they know the game. But then others, I'm like, there were a couple in the last episode, I'm like, I just can't read them because I think it might be a spoiler. It'll be like, well, in the manga, and I just zoned out. I was like, nope, not reading. So just note that I just can't do it. I've got to be cautious. I've gone this far without being spoiled, and I'm not going to take any risks. So if you do see somebody trying to spoil in the comments and be a troll, please reply to them and say, hey, Romania Black, please don't read this comment. It's a spoiler. Some people they can't help themselves, and I just don't want to read it. So with that being said, there are some comments I do want to touch base on. A Gray Angel and both Jamie ABGB talked about some of the adaptations that I want to watch after I'm done with the series. I definitely am going to watch the US adaptation of Netflix, the Netflix adaptation, because I've heard it's terrible and garbage, and I feel like it's going to come out around New Year's. It'll be a nice way to start the year in one dumpster fire by watching one. So let's do that. As I am watching that, I do want to watch the musical, because the musical and stage plays, I've watched a few stage plays and musicals for series, but it's a genre I'm not very familiar with, so it might be interesting to see. And seeing Death Note as a musical sounds hilarious and wonderful, so I'm like, I want to see this. So yeah, I definitely want to watch that. But I was told by a Great Angel that there is an 11-episode drama series. It's an adaptation from 2005. I probably will not watch that or react to it, because it's just an adaptation of this series. I can watch this series again if I want to. So I probably won't watch that unless it's on my own time. And then Jamie AGB talked about that the first 2 Japanese movies are adaptations of this, and the third one is an original one. And I've heard from comments, people are kind of like wishy-washy on the third one. Makes sense if it's a whole new story and it doesn't quite tie in with this. I could see why people would think that. So I'm not sure if I'm going to watch the live action adaptations yet. It just depends on the series that I have a feeling is going to replace this one. For the time slot, it's going to depend on the timing of everything. So we'll see as we get closer. But I'm definitely watching the musical, definitely watching the Netflix adaptation, because we all need a good hate watch, a rant watch after we're done with this series, I feel. But thank you guys for giving me that information. Kaylin V also cleared up a few things. Like, Kaylin V's comment did it right. Like, Kaylin V was very clear not to spoil things, but they made sure to help me clarify some things with the notebook, because it really is like a big game of hot potato with this Death Note sometimes, and it can get confusing, right? So Kaylin B was like, the notebook that Mello had in their possession, that the one criminal had, was originally Ryuk's notebook. So they could have seen Ryuk if he had showed up, but they couldn't see Sito, even though Sito owned it before Ryuk. So that's why Sito had to grab it, give it to the guy again, because he was the owner, and then they all had to touch it. That makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. And also, I always forget that it's kind of a weird rule. It was established back in episode 24 that if you give up your notebook, but you are touching another notebook, you won't forget your memories as long as you keep that notebook on you at all times. So essentially, as long as Light keeps Misa's notebook on him 24/7, he won't forget his memories. Which, what a chastity belt. I'm just like, Misa's like, you want to have sexy times, Light? And he's like, I would, but I've got to be touching this notebook. It might slide out from under me. I just can't. I imagine that's his excuse. That's my headcanon anyway. And then Alexander Q made a really good point about, she had a really good tribute to Daddy Yagami, because R.I.P. Daddy Yagami from episode 29, rest in peace. But that Soichiro, he wasn't perfect. He didn't do everything completely perfectly, but he was strong and had a good moral center, and he stuck true to that up until the very end. He never wavered. And I thought that he kind of embodied the idea that he didn't become a monster to win. And that's such a good contrast to Light, to Mello, and to Nier. They've all been very willing and have stated they're willing to become monsters in order to win the game, and in order for Light to become a god and to maintain this perfect image. So they're kind of the contradiction to what Soichiro was. And Soichiro ended up dying happy, believing that he was correct the entire time. So I don't know. It's also hit me a few other things too, rewatching this. I want to touch base on them before I talk about the dub. But the one thing that has come back to me is the idea that L and Mello and them, they don't seem to want to use the notebook. Back a few episodes ago, I was like, well, why doesn't Mello use the notebook? But knowing that if you use the notebook, you don't go to either heaven nor hell, whatever that amounts to, it makes sense why they don't want to use it. And L never used it, so, and neither did Soichiro, so that's interesting. So far, Rei's been the one that's used it, right? Aside from Light, and aside from the criminals. So that's interesting. But also, I talked in the last episode about using a dictatorship as an example, and this is airing before episode 30 goes on YouTube, but I can just picture, as I was rewatching it, I was like, ooh, I could see somebody in the comments being like, well, Light's not trying to be a dictator, he's trying to be a god. And I was like, yeah. And I could see some people making comments about like the fire and brimstone, God of the Old Testament being kind of similar to Light. Yes, I'm actually rereading the Bible right now. Neon Genesis kind of inspired me to do it, but so has Death Note, and I'm on like Deuteronomy right now. What a fest. But yeah, the Old Testament God is very fire and brimstone and like a very jealous God. And if you don't worship me, I'm going to smite you. And it's like, okay, yeah, which I could see people in the comments tying that to Light's attitude towards justice. I hear you. I'm more of like a New Testament person, obviously. But I could see that. I just wanted to use the dictator example looking back, because I don't want to give Light the dignity of calling him a god. I don't want to give him the dignity of saying that he is. He's a human. He's a person. So yeah, the dictatorship analogy lines more in line with actually Light than the religious context does for me. But I could see somebody making that argument. And then I just watched the dub episode. Oh my God, the dub episode was hilarious. You know why? Because they gave the president a Texas accent. They made him George W. Bush. And I was like, to be fair, was not necessarily thinking of that example in the episode when they were talking about the US president, because timeline wise, I know this was made back in like the aughts when George W. Bush was president of the US, but theoretically in the timeline for this series, it doesn't make sense. But I just thought them using his voice as the dub, hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I was like, are you freaking serious? But the dub episode was great. Brad Swain, wonderful as Light, as always. The voice acting was really, really good. And I was like, yep, on board. Great work. So Mello's voice actor, I feel like, is he Flock in Attack on Titan? I feel like he's Flock's English dub actor in Attack on Titan. He sounds the same. So there's that. But oh my gosh, y'all. Yeah, I'm really excited for this episode. I am nervous as all get out for Nier, because he may die. This may be the last time we see Nier. So if that's the case, discussion's gonna be fun. But we'll see. So we'll find out what insanity awaits us in this episode, but I've talked enough. So we're going to start episode 31 of Death Note, and we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I was starting to feel real good in this episode, and then at the end of it, I was like, oh no. How does this show do that? how does this show do that? You start to feel like, okay, well maybe things will be fine. And then maybe Nier will catch Light, and maybe Light will lose. And then at the very last second, damn Light Yagami with his giant brain, who's been doing all this research on everybody, finds a loophole and he just exploits it. So, God, this is more frustrating, I think. I think it's more frustrating for me watching as a viewer than when L was fighting, because at least with L, you were like, okay, well, no, he's going to get there, and then he dies, and now Nier knows it. He knows that it's L. He absolutely knows it, and it's just, he's put it out there that's Light, not L. He's the second L. He's put it out there, and everyone knows that it's Light, but now Mikami has come into this, and Teru Mikami has come into this picture, and Light just found an out. He has an out now to kill Aizawa and Ide and the others without it being him. He has found a way to do it, and it's like, are you serious? If they just strip search Light, this game would be over. If Aizawa was just like, strip down to your skivvies right now, let's solve this, game over for Light, he'd expose the Death Note. We could have solved this whole thing if they just did a strip search, you know, like a police force or something. I don't know. Then we'd have then game over. Done. If they were just like, Light, we trust you, but if you can just do us a solid, just strip down, let us see you don't have the Death Note on you, and then we'll be convinced that you're not him. Game over. Done. But we can't do that. I'm just waiting for Nier to show up and it's like, strip him of his clothes, he's got the Death Note, and then the game's over. But now Light has found the most convenient way to have everything go his way, because yeah, Mikami as second Kira, or I guess now as Kira, because Misa was Kira, he can just kill Aizawa and Ide in them, and Light won't be suspect, because they're like, oh, well, it was the other Kira, not me. You've been watching me the whole time. It couldn't have been me. He's found an out. I think he's going to kill Aizawa and Ide. I really do. And I wouldn't be surprised if he killed Mogi. I don't think he's going to kill Matsuda, because Matsuda believes in him. And I think he'll want Matsuda around to babysit Misa. We'll talk about all that. But yeah, it's just, oh my God, Mikami. Mikami looks like if L and Light had a love child. I'm just going to say it. He's really hot. He looks like if L like did something with his hair and had Light's face. He looks a lot. Well, that's why when I first watched the OP, I was a little confused, because I thought that the guy in the OP was Light with glasses on. Everybody was like, no, it's not him. And I'm like, okay. And so and he kind of looked like one of the guys that was with the Tsubasa group, with one of those guys. He looked like them, but it's not him because he's dead. So now it's this Mikami guy who has the glasses and stuff. Okay. So what do we do with that? I don't know. But man, God, I will give Nier this. I think I will give Nier this. I don't think, there's parts of me that would be like, I think L would be proud of Nier for how he got out of that situation, because I think at the end of the day, L was just using his fortune that he inherited and that he had from Atari. From Atari, I think he was just using that fortune as a resource to help him be a detective. So I think at the end of the day, L would not have cared that Nier threw all of the cash and fortune at the mob to get out of that situation. I think he would have been fine with that. I hope they didn't give all of it away, because they need some money to run operations, but I feel like they maybe got rid of most of it. But you can't take it with you, so, right? You can't take it with you, so just get rid of it. And it was such a great symbolic tool to show how easily swayed the masses are, how easily swayed. And we're going to talk about that with Light's whole plan and remolding of the new world, right? Because he's found a zealot to become his right-hand man. He's become someone to become his right-hand man that fully is a just devout Kira worshiper, kind of like Misa, but as far as we know, doesn't have the attachment to Light that Misa had, right? Which is, we're going to talk about that. There's pros and cons to that, right? There are pros and cons, and we're going to talk about that to an extent, right? So that's going to be very fascinating to see go down. But when we get to Mikami, we will talk about that and discuss it. And Demigawa, I didn't think he was going to die this soon, but he's gone. And we'll talk about that as well. And how I talked in the last episode about things getting out of Light's control, and we'll discuss that. But going back to this episode, I will give Nier props. I really didn't know how Nier was getting out of this. I was like, how are you going to get through the crowd without being seen? I figured they'd cover their faces, but I'm like, how do they stop the face masks from getting ripped off? Well, the answer is they just blend in with the police. I want to imagine that Nier escaped with all the toys in his arms and he's so short that he just blended in with the other policemen. God, I hope there's like fan art somewhere of Nier with all the toys and his tactical gear and Light's just like find him somewhere and he just like sneaks out under everybody. I hope there's fan art like that because the image of Nier with this like military force tactical gear on but holding like a Transformer toy is really adorable. So yeah, I think if Light did anything to help Nier, it's showing how resourceful Kira is, right? And now the title transfer makes all the sense. They transferred Misa and her memories and everything over to Mikami. Okay. Which again, it's going to be fascinating to see. We'll talk about Misa when we get to it. My mind is like swarming with theories and things and the symbolism and all of that goes along with this. But so South Wing Airport, so back in Japan, God, Mello just shows up in like the most outrageous. Mello ain't even trying to be inconspicuous. He just shows up in the most outrageous fashion, but I absolutely love it. I'm like, Mello, you bold sir. So Mello's back in Japan. He's out of the U.S. He's in Japan. Nier is still, as far as we know, in the U.S. So let's just kind of chart out where everybody's at. Okay, Nier, as far as we know, is still in the U.S. We're going to say, possibly. We're going to say they were in New York. Now, whether or not they're still in New York, I don't know. It's kind of, I get such Banana Fish vibes when I think of anime in New York. And I've always gotten kind of Banana Fish vibes with Mello and Nier being part of the story at this point. And now Mikami coming in, total Banana Fish vibes. I'm here for it. But yeah, so as far as we know, they're still in New York. And I'm going to put Mello over here. Mello is back in Japan. Okay. And Mello is very dangerous because he knows about how the Death Note works and about how Shinigami work. He is quite... And here's the scary thing is that Mikami has the Shinigami eyes. We'll put Mikami over here. Okay. I'm actually going to make this a different color because of Mello and Nier are actively against Kira. So I'm going to put the pro Kira with Mikami here. So Mikami did the Shinigami eyes, which it makes sense that he would, because if he is a devout follower who thinks that Kira, when they said what he thinks Kira is, I thought he was going to say justice. I was waiting for him to say justice. Oh no, we've got a step beyond that. He thinks Kira is God, and he is God's right-hand man. Okay. He is a religious, devout follower who believes that Kira is God. And so him sacrificing half his life, not a thing, can do it. So that's the scary thing, is that the thing is we don't know. The one thing saving Mello at this point is that we don't have any... Light and them have no clue what he looks like, right? But they just need to find someone named Mihail Keel, and then they'll know it's him. So Mikami... The dangerous thing is that Mello doesn't know that Mikami has the Shinigami eyes or those abilities. So if he accidentally runs into Mikami, it's going to be a very bad situation and he will probably get killed by him. Because Mikami doesn't seem like he's going to hesitate. Mikami does not seem like he seems very willing to forego morals for the sake of Kira. And oh my God, he's a prosecutor. So he's a lawyer. So I like that tie to the justice system, that he's the one passing judgment. It's so symbolically perfect that Mikami is a prosecuting attorney. He's passing judgment on people, not as a judge, but as trying to convict people. And he has this power to execute them now. That's dangerous, right? So I am a little worried for Mello, because Mello has no clue about Mikami, no idea about him. I'm worried he's going to run into Mikami, and Mikami's going to kill him by seeing his name. And Mello will be none the wiser. So I am worried about that. I am worried about that to an extent. But God, Mello just has a great fashion. Like he has this big scar now, and this giant red jacket. Like, he's not even trying to not be conspicuous. I'm like, Mello, it looks like he's dyed his hair lighter, which the one cool thing the OP does is they color, like, oversaturate or undersaturate the images in the OP so much that, like, when you see Mello under the grate, under Light's feet, his hair is like bleach blonde. It's almost white. And here, his hair does look like it's bleached a little bit. It's not as dark red as it was before, but it seems like it's sail reddish. And then Mikami in the OP, his hair is like, you know, bright brown, and the woman's hair is like green. So we know their hair isn't really like that in real life. So curious. Okay. And he pulls out this candy bar. It says "we" on it. It's like not a Hershey bar at all. And everybody's watching at the airport about the place getting stormed. Okay, make note. Actually, Mello, he tore off the piece of the candy bar in the proper format. He tore off a little block of it to eat it. Look at that. Look at you, Mello. Look at you. But yeah, so he's seeing everything going. And I think Mello realizes Nier's going to get out of there somehow. Or he wants him to get out. Because even as much as Mello and Nier are against each other playing this game, and as much as they say they don't want to get along and work together, I don't think either of them wants each other to die. It's kind of the realization of what Light and Elle had. Because Light and Elle were like Sherlock and Moriarty. They were both trying to figure out who is Kira. But in the end, Light was like, nah, I'm totally fine with killing you, Elle, if it means I get my way. I don't think Mello or Nier want each other to die necessarily. I think they want to beat them and be the number one, you know, successor to Elle and be on top. But I don't think either one wants the other dead. So I think that's a pretty good distinction. Because otherwise, yeah, Mello could have done a lot to get rid of Nier if he wanted to. And so, yeah, Demigala is saying that he's Kira's voice. Again, it's very interesting for Light, who Light is willing to use people until they are no longer advantageous to him and his agenda, right? So we have Light, and Light has been researching this whole time. Light is, again, really smart. And so it's funny, what this show does that's kind of cool is that behind the scenes, it looks like Light's just been on the computer doing random research this whole time, which you'd wonder, like, what could you be researching on Kira? You are Kira. Are you just pretending just to make it look like you're busy? No, he's been researching Mikami, Teru Mikami, this whole time to use him as a successor to Misa. Because, yeah, he's been researching this whole time to find Teru, to find somebody, because Light's always looking for a way to escape, a way to get out of the situation, right? And so he has Misa give up the Death Note and everything. And we'll talk about that over here on the side in a little bit, to have Ryuk give to Teru. Okay, I don't know if I want to call him Mikami or Teru. Teru sounds easier, but Mikami is like my god, so fitting. Okay, or I guess Mi means something else Japanese. Kami means god. So, but yeah, he's like, follow me, and place them in front of the cameras. And so, yeah, I do love the thematic thing that they bring up here, that these people that are rioting, they're not Kira followers. They don't really believe in the justice of Kira. They're just a big mob that wants attention and wants in the spotlight and to, you know, say that they did something. They're just bored and doing something. And they have like the K's on their arms. It's very on the nose with the pipes and everything. And they have the Kira flags. Mm-hmm. And you have Misa standing out there, and she's like, I'm not going to miss them. And then Light's like, Nier, you have to get out of there, as, you know, Misa's ready to find them. And I do love the animation on Nier in this episode, because he's just like, well, you have some nerve saying that, being Kira. like Nier is such a little kid. He's just like, nah, nah, nah. Like, God, that image of him just like pouting, being like, yeah, we're about to die, but I'm not going to give you the satisfaction. I actually love that about Nier. Nier being kind of childish is actually really cute. I'm like, okay. And he's like, are you still saying that? It's like, of course he is. He's fully convinced. And he lines up all the toys in the half circle, in the half moon, if you will. And it's like, there are other organizations that are chasing Kira. And he's like, we get attacked as soon as I begin to suspect you. It's like, it's awfully convenient, awfully suspicious. And and he knocks the toys one by one as he makes his points. He's like, yeah. He's like, you've made... And he's like, oh, well, you're making too many assumptions. And meanwhile, I love that Ryuka's just floating in the background, not saying anything. But yeah, here's the thing. Nier does make assumptions because he said that from the start. He's like, well, if I get things wrong, I just have to apologize. So yes, I think that that Light is kind of thrown off because Nier is not like L. No, he's not like L. He is okay with running with assumptions. Yeah, he's okay with that. Nier doesn't care. He's fine with running with assumptions. Totally fine with that. He just wants to prove who Kira is and win the game. It is all a game to him. That was one thing in the English dub. In the English dub, the voice actor from Matsuda was like, does he think this is all just a game? It's like, Yep, doesn't care about anybody, really. He just wants to solve the puzzle. And he's like, members of the task force, Kira is probably among you. At this point, Nier's like, I'm not going to fall for your tricks, Light. I'm going to just say my piece, and they can do whatever they want with it. And so he's like, yeah, no, Kira's there. Think carefully. Like, y'all are smart. Figure it out. And Aizawa's like, yeah, my suspicions are stronger again. And even once they investigate Misa's apartment and Light's apartment and realize there's no notebook there, Aizawa's still hesitant. He's still a little hesitant about it. He's like, I still don't, like his gut is telling him something's off, right? Same with Mogi. He's like, the former L also thought Light was Kira, and he died. Yep. And so I love that glare he gives Light. He just gives Light a glare like, everybody's conveniently died that you've been associated with. Funny that. But Light is trying to think 10 steps ahead of everybody and being like, how can I cover my ass and keep myself from being suspected even more? And he somehow manages to do that. It's so frustrating, right? You've got to give Light credit because it's so frustrating because I want Light to lose. I am actively rooting for Nier to win at this point because Light has foregone like all this morality to him. And I want him to lose so badly. But at the same time, you've almost got to give Light so much credit because he plans things out and he's so smart about it that you're just like, well, damn it. I can't fault you for being brilliant, but I want you to lose. It's like the opposite of the underdog. We're not rooting for Light at this point. We want him to be captured, but then we can't deny when he does something so bold and brilliant like this. It just, it's so frustrating. But yeah, Demigawa. So Demigawa starts kind of foreshadowing that he was going to take things into his own hands when he starts trying to order the mob around. The mob that is supposedly motivated by Kira. And everybody's just fighting and creating a scene and causing a ruckus. And the Richter guy, he's like, they're such foolish people. He convinces Nier that they need to go. And he's like, I'm not surprised there are people who follow Kira. And he knocks down the toy. So yeah, so Nier goes into this monologue about the people that are there in the riot. And he says that, yes, of course Kira would have followers. And I think that's something that ties kind of to Matsuda's point of view from the last episodes. L and all them were like, how could people support Kira? Why would they do this? And Matsuda's like, well, I know exactly why they would. And Misa is an example of that. So Nier is not knocking that idea. He's like, no, I get that there would be people that would follow Kira because of this sense of justice he's purporting. But they hope that Kira will bring justice to evildoers. So yeah, Nier is kind of in this, it's almost like Nier is neutral, right? As far as Kira is concerned. He doesn't care about the religious, the justice, the connotations with Kira. All he knows is that Kira needs to be caught. That's the game. And we have to do it. What we believe about Kira is regardless to Nier, right? And to Mello. Although I do think Mello harbors a little bit more resentment because of L and his death. But he's like, however, these people who are storming in here are different. They are worthless people. So he acknowledges, and this is foreshadowing with the money, he acknowledges that the rioters are worthless. He's like, they are not really supporters of Kira. They are just blind sheep that are in a mob mentality, but they're easily manipulated. So he's like, so with them being easily manipulated, we could just drop a big wad of cash on them, and they're going to abandon this whole Kira mob real quick and let us get out of here. He's like, selfish people who only want to have some fun. And he knocks down all the toys except one. And the one guy, he's like, yeah, I know that, but we still need to get out of here. And he's like, let's use L's fortune and the anti-Kira people we hired. So they did hire some anti-Kira people. They hired some police people that are against Kira, and they have L's fortune at their disposal. And he's like, let's do that. And he's like, but if we carry out that plan once, it was kind of their trump card. That was like their, if all else fails, we'll go with this plan. And N's like, now's the time. We need to get out of here and get to a more secure location. We should already be prepared. And I love that he's just grabbing all the toys. He's like, I ain't leaving these behind. Oh, he's like, it should be interesting. And he leaves the one toy standing there. Okay, so I want to make note that Nier now knows what Light is capable of. Because yeah, if Light did anything to help Nier, it's to show Nier just the resources that Light has at his disposal and how he has access now to the president of the US, how now he has access to the resources and the people to sway them, like Demagawa, to get them to go and use their own resources to go after people. And Nier now knows that he needs tighter security and a place that is not comparable as this place was, which, to be fair, it was only really comparable because Light went to the president. But Nier points out, he's like, we have other organizations that are after Kira that aren't just the SBK. We can go join them and help them. And I'm sure he still has some of L's fortune. He didn't spend all of it. He just probably dropped a huge chunk of it. Like, they suspect $10 million. That's a lot. So they probably just dropped that to get out of that situation. Which, again, how much money did L have? Which, his Watari was a famous inventor, so all them patents, all them royalties. But yeah, so I feel like one thing that makes me feel a little bit okay is that Nier is probably in a more secure location now that he's gotten away from Light. But Light is not going to take this as a loss. No, Light is like, I'm not going to be outdone by Nier. I'm not going to accept it as a lose. I'm going to instead put my other plan into motion. Okay. But God, I love the idea of just the imagery of the money falling from the sky, and they're all $100 bills. And they all go after them. And the imagery of the Kira flag dropping to the ground the moment the money shows up. Genius. It's such a commentary. And Ryuki even says, he's like, man, humans are interesting. Because Matsuda's like, man, I wish I was there. I'm like, Matsuda, you wish you were there in a riot to kill someone just for the money? Like, just the commentary of Matsuda and how he's just part of the masses. But yeah, it's just like blind sheep. They just go wherever they can and wherever they're led to. But yeah, Nier's like, I know how to manipulate people just like you, Light. And these people are easily manipulated. Even Demagawa is like trying to grab all the money as well. Because at the end of the day, even though Light has been using Demagawa, he's a sheep too. He was mainly going to the US to expose Nier because of the ratings. He's like, I just want the ratings. Like, this is going to make us super wealthy. And so for Demagawa was useful to a point. And we'll talk about that. But he is also manipulated. And we'll talk about that with the temple. Because that's going to bring up a whole nother can of worms that I kind of brought up last episode. And we're going to touch on it here. But yeah, Matsuda's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. He's like, I wish I were there. And Ide's like, are you freaking serious? And Ryuk's like, you guys are really interesting. Kind of lame, but interesting. But then Ryuk says, well, that could buy apples. So I get it. I'm like, how many apples could be bought with $10 million? Let's think about that. So yeah, okay. If we were thinking about it, and I'm an English major, so math is not my strong suit. So if we had $10 million, so let's just add that up here. If we had $10 million, let's say an apple is 58 cents right now. I'm just guessing. Oh, you could buy 17 million apples with that, Ryuk, give or take a couple 100,000. So Ryuk's probably like, man, I wish I was there. I'd have apples for life. And he can eat the really disgusting apples in the Shinigami world, so even if they kind of disintegrated, he'd be all right. That's really fun. Like, look at you, Ryuk. Look at you. But yeah, and then all of them, like, even to the point where Demagawa, and I love that Light's like, curse you, Nier! I'm like, oh, poor baby Light. Does it hurt to have your plans foiled by a child? But no, I say Nier's a child. He's probably like 18 or 19, but he puts up a front just like Light does to seem like a child when really he's much more intelligent than that. There's nothing more satisfying than Light's face as Nier gets away. I know that things work out for Light seemingly in the end here, but I will gladly savor this moment where Light is completely thrown off thinking he's going to win. And Misa really figures it out too at the same time. He plans to use the chaos to escape. But then he'll be caught on Demigawa's cameras. But he can't be because all the money, it's all flowing. He's like, Pilot, go to the floor where the money is coming from. Yeah, I want to get a shot of him with the money. And Misa's just like, damn it, Demigawa, what are you doing? Like, she's just like, you failed. Her and Light both get it that he was just a puppet. She's like, Misa, you can't buy love and peace with money. I want to make a note real quick about Misa. And I'm going to put her kind of over here. And put her over here. That Misa, she says that love and peace is not through money, but through justice. Misa's reasonings. I mean, it's going to be interesting getting to know Teru more. It's going to be interesting getting to know Teru. And we'll talk about him as we close out this episode. But Misa, her whole reasoning for following Kira in the first place is because he punished the burglar that killed her parents. And she related to that idea of justice being served to someone that had wronged her and her family. And for her, that act of Kira killing that burglar gave her peace of mind. And so in her falling in love with Light, who was also Kira, she came to this understanding that, Light was going to bring about this era of peace and love. And so that's why she was on board with Kira. And she thought that, okay, if his justice becomes a thing, then the world will be a lot better and there'll be more love and peace. And that's honestly, sincerely what Misa believed. And that's kind of what Matsuda believes, even though as I was like, no, that's not how this works. But so it's hard to fault Misa for thinking that, kind of like it's hard to fault Matsuda for thinking that too, because they genuinely believe it. And that's something that would be, somebody that's like, oh, we're doing this for peace and love. It's hard to get mad at somebody for that because you're like, well, you have your heart's in the right place. It's just like everything else about it's kind of warped. But yeah, so Misa's saying that like the money, it's not about the money. It's about, and she just scolds, Demigawa for it. And Light is just like, he keeps on like refreshing the scene, seeing what's happening. And he keeps looking through the crowd, wondering if he'll see. And then he's like, the police, they were called in to contain the chaos, but it was more than that. He's like, no, at this rate, they're going to escape. And we see everybody getting their tactical gear on, right? I do like that Gavani and Lindner have like, one has bright blue eyes and one has like almondy, like golden eyes. It's a cool contrast. And then Richter there, and he's like, let's go. I was like, right now we can just walk out the entrance. I cannot get over the fact that you have him in with the toys in his hands. I just can't get over Nier with the toys. I really hope he walked out with those. I was almost, what I wanted to happen in the moment was for Light to freeze frame and to see someone running with the tactical gear and toys in their hands and being like, is that Nier? I was waiting for it to happen. I really wanted it to go down, but no, we didn't get that. He's like, they were prepared for something like this. Yeah, Light underestimates people just as much as people underestimate him. So I'm going to put it up here. He underestimated Nier. Which, I'm kind of like, Light, you are out of shape, dude. You knew how prepared L was for all this. Why did you think Nier, who is his successor, would be any different? So I think Light just got really cocky, and he's like, I've got him right where I want him. And it's like, Nier's like, no, we got a plan to get out. He's like telling Aizawa and the others to watch over the police. It's like saying, I'm Kira. Yeah, Nier knows how to corner him. But now that Teru's involved in the mix, I'm like, I don't even know. Light's probably found himself like a saving grace. I really wanted to see him in the crowd here. I was desperate to see Nier, but he can't. It's like the stampede from the Lion King. It's like the wildebeest stampede and, Light is Simba looking for Nier in the crowd. Can someone Photoshop that? Can someone edit that video? That would be amazing. But no, they get away. They manage to get out. And here's the thing. Light says, damn it, and looks over, and Aizawa is watching him, and Ide's watching him. They're all suspicious. Even if Light's managed to cover his tracks at the end of the episode, I feel like they're still suspicious of him. And that's why I think he's going to use Teru to kill them, because then he has an out. It's not him, it's the other guy. Can't be me. Has to be Teru. Okay. And so Aizawa is questioning what he needs to do. What does he need to do in this situation? Does he trust Light, or does he try to contact Nier? And they say it was probably $10 million. And Ryuk's like, how many apples is that? And Aizawa's like, what do I do? And Light, meanwhile, is like, oh, Nier has some balls, though, y'all. Nier has some balls to call L and it not be traced, to kind of like gloat in the fact of it. See, here's the thing. I don't think L would not have gloated like Nier does. L would have been much more calculated and probably would have planned things out a little bit more before he tried to make contact with Light. But Nier wastes no time. He's just like, I got away. And so it's funny because we've talked about in the last couple episodes how much Nier and Mello together kind of make up L. But there are aspects of Nier and Mello that kind of are akin to Light. And Nier can be cocky just like Light can, which makes them dangerous, right? But yeah, him calling and they're like, oh, really? And then they all put their headsets on. And he says, this is Nier. And he's like, well, and he's got all his toys. We've reestablished a connection. And I decided to give you a call. So we don't know exactly. They're somewhere. They're somewhere. We don't know exactly where. But they are, in fact, somewhere with his... And he's got 4 toys left. He managed to take his 4 favorite ones with him. Got Megatron, so that's good. He's like, you're... And then, of course, Light has to be like, Nier, you're safe. You know, to not seem too suspicious. And Nier just doesn't even acknowledge Light. He's like, no. He's like, I think it's about time you have some certainty who Kira is. So we were attacked at such a convenient time. It's like saying that the Kira is in the Japanese Task Force headquarters. Funny that. And it really is. Like, I get Light was very desperate and he had to do it in that moment. And there was really no way around it. But it does make them seem awfully suspicious because the timing is just too convenient. You're worse than a preschooler if you're not suspicious of the second L. I like that Nier doesn't say if you don't believe that the second L is Kira. I like that Nier at least says if you're not suspicious. He doesn't call them out for saying, like, if you guys don't believe that the second L is Kira, y'all are dumb. But he says, you would be worse than this preschooler to not have some kind of suspicion. Like, come on. Like, it's too convenient. You have to at least have some doubts. He's like, the number I gave the day before is working again. And the way he smiles, it's creepy. He has a creepy smile. Like when L smiled, it was kind of like, oh, but when Nier smiles, it's kind of creepy. It's like, call anytime you like. And Light's just like, what the fudge? Light's like, can you believe this? He's like, I'll be waiting. So Light's trying to Light's like going through a million miles a second of thoughts, being like, well, how do I counter this? What do I say? And Nier's just like, I guess we'll see. And Light's like, I don't care what you do. And Matsuda's like, well, is Nier just playing a game with us? But I'm sure Light suspects that Aizawa and Ide are going to contact him. Now, we don't get any confirmation with Ide. Ide, we don't know. But Mogi and Aizawa contacts him. And we see like the green and the red. Yep. We see those two against each other. Ugh. Oh no. And then we go back to Aizawa's house where he's got the whiskey and the phone. And he's like, the deputy director, I don't want to suspect him, but he's like, it's too much. And God, this moment with his daughter where she like looks at him and she's like studying for exam and everything. And he's like, oh, I see. And she says, don't push yourself too hard. And she says, you too. And this is his face. What is this? It's like Aizawa is the most wholesome here. That's why, like, I'm sure some people will be like, well, of course Light had to kill Aizawa. He was suspect of him. But I'm like, at the end of the day, like, Aizawa, he's this family guy that's trying to do right by his family and has this sense of what peace is. And Light doesn't care about family. Doesn't care about humanity. It's funny, he really doesn't. He just wants to be a god. At the end of the day, he doesn't care who he kills, and that kind of defeats the purpose, right? It started out as one thing, and this is where Light's become and what he's gotten to the point where he's just using people and doesn't care. And Aizawa, you see this like humanity with Aizawa and how much he's tied to his family. Light's not connected to his family at all. So it's hard to like feel bad for Light for me, because I'm like, you have a guy here who has his family and his wife and kids, and he loves them and he's trying to do right by them. Light's only trying to do right by himself. Doesn't care about anybody else. Really doesn't. And so that kind of, I think, helps him make that decision to contact Nier. And to be fair, he doesn't, and then he sees his daughter through the mirror, and that's what helps his decision. Like, I've got to help, do this. Because, okay, so the ones that stuck behind were, like, Matsuda's there, and is Aizawa there, or is it Mogi? It might be Mogi, but Matsuda's asleep on the couch. It might be Mogi that's there. So we don't see Ide. We don't see Ide, so we don't know what he's doing. But Light is thinking it's not suspicious. It's not a problem for somebody to contact Nier. He suspects they're going to do that. But the problem is what happens afterwards. Like, once they contact Nier, where is Nier's train of thought going to go? What is he going to suggest they do? What is he going to ask of Light? So at this point, Light's like, how do I keep myself from any further suspicion and dig myself out of any hole? And okay, it's Mogi. All right, Mogi's there. And Light's like, I have no choice but to do it. And we go back to the bird in the cage. And so the bird in the cage, we touch base with Misa. I'm wondering what Misa was reading all the time, because Misa has those notebooks and stuff lined out. Like, what's she been reading this whole time? And she's like, oh, it's emergency order from Light. And then she's like, what is this? It's instruction number 3. So there were 2 instruction number 2s and 1 3. Okay. And then she reads it and she's like, oh. And she says, no way. Okay. And then we see the dice tumbling and we see all the members of the task force that are there. All right. So Nier, and the snake eyes lands on Aizawa. And so he's pulling. I like that Nier's like, I gotta get all the toys out, all the dice while I'm talking so that my deductions are the clearest. To be fair, I mean, the good news is they just had to stockpile toys for Nier. They didn't have to get food. I guess that's the one benefit. So, okay, we establish here that regaining ownership of the Death Note, all memories associated with the Death Note will also return. Okay, so I feel like now they gave us these rules because it's going to be important with Misa. So, when regaining ownership of the Death Note, the memories associated with the Death Note will also return. In cases where you were involved with other Death Notes as well, the memories of all the Death Notes involved will return. Okay, so as long as Light has Misa's Death Note, he'll remember everything. Okay, everything. All right, as long as he has Misa's, which is why he has it on his person at all times. Okay, so we have that established. All right, and then we have the second rule that even without obtaining ownership, just touching the Death Note will return the memories. So that is a bit dangerous, right? Because if Misa ever touches a Death Note, she's going to remember everything. So that is something that could come back to bite Light in the end if Misa regains her memories by touching the Death Note. That is something that could come back to bite him. He just needs to keep it away from her. So there's that, right? So we got to just hope that Nier and Mello don't figure that out and use that rule, okay? But that is something curious, right? They do state that, so that's something that could be a problem later on. Okay. And so then we have, again, the bird in the cage. The time has finally come. It says, in order to keep me safe and for me to become a normal wife. Bleh. Ugh. Ew. She was never a normal wife to begin with, nor will she be. Light, just disgusting. So basically, Light has her hand over ownership and her memories. And he says it's under the guise to keep her safe and let her be a normal wife. That she's going to hand it over. And Misa does it because she loves Light. And the way that he phrased it, he's like, well, I can love you normally and you'll be safe, if you're not tied to Kira. And it's like, ugh, I can't roll my eyes any harder. I'm just like, girl. And she loves him, so she does it. I'm like, if you believe that hard in somebody, she's like, this is what Light wants for me. Yeah, it does, because he just used you and now you're no longer useful to him because he knows that you could be a liability. So, I mean, at least he didn't kill her, I guess, but that would be way too obvious. Then it'd be totally clear it was him. But yeah, he's just like, well, he's like, I know you wanted to help me and stuff, but you're no longer useful to me and you could be a liability. So, and I can't kill you because then I'd be really a suspect. So I'm just going to make you forget everything. And then you're just somebody I can ignore. And that's kind of the problem now. Now her being oblivious is a benefit to Light because it makes him look less suspicious because she has no clue and she can't see Ryuk or anything. So there's that. But also, it's like, now he can just ignore her even more because she can't kill him. She can't kill him with the Shinigami eyes. So he can just completely ignore her and just keep her there in the home like a bird in a cage. And she can't harm him. So he's eliminated Misa as any type of threat or liability. He wants me to be happy just as a woman should be. Ugh. Ew. That's not, I just get like, not abusive spouse vibes, but just toxic. I'm like, girl, get away from him. He doesn't love you and he's just been using you this whole time. Gross. And she says, thank you. I guess the only good part about this, the only good thing about this is that now Misa might actually be safe. And she won't have the memories of the Death Note. I guess if there's one silver lining all this, that Misa, kind of like Soichiro, now does not have the Death Note to be a burden to her, to tie her down with. He doesn't have to use her to kill people over and over again anymore. So I guess there's that silver lining. And she may be to the point where he doesn't have to kill her. So I guess that's the silver lining, as twisted as that is, but still just ew. And there's a shot later on that really makes me think ew, but we haven't gotten to it yet. But yeah, so they're looking at point A, which is, why are they looking at Australia? Interesting. And so they're seeing how fascinating. L was detained for more than 50 days, and there were 2 suspects who were cleared due to the 13-day rule. Yeah, so he's just sitting there examining everything. But that alone doesn't mean that they're Kira. So L just simply released them? He says no, but L had Deputy Director Yagami, who was Bureau Chief, put on an act. All right, and so here we established the act. He said they both had been found to be Kira and second Kira and were taken to be executed. So he runs through everything that happened back in episode, was it 14 maybe? Episode 14 or 15? I think it might have been 16 even. And so, but this story is all that Nier needs to be like, oh, okay, why would this chief be so pressed to kill this kid like Yagami? Why would he be threatening to kill him, and why would it be taken seriously? Who would do that? But it's like, no, that's his son. His son was the one that was suspected as being Kira, who is the second L. And he's like, wow, how convenient that the chief of police's son, like Yagami, is now second L and was suspected of being Kira. Wow, isn't that something? Like, he figures it all out. Like, he connects all the dots together, and he says Kira is quite impressive. He used his detainment to demonstrate his innocence. And so, yeah, the thing of it is, and he asks Aizawa, he's like, did the suspect volunteer to be detained? And Aizawa's like, he has a visible reaction to that. He's like, come to think of it, he did. I'm like, how'd you forget? And he's like, yeah, he did volunteer to be detained. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, if he did, then it's already decided. He's like, who is it? Who are the 2 suspects? But Aizawa says, I can't tell you that much. So the thing of it is that Nier does not know about Misa. Okay? He does not know about Misa. And Light was just having Misa get rid of the notebook to cover his base with the task force, and on the off chance that Nier got that information. But Nier doesn't have that information about Misa, which I'm honestly glad about, because I think that one of L's problems in trying to figure out Light was that when Misa was involved, it made things too complicated. And he was trying to prove Misa was second Kira while proving Light was Kira. And it was just Light was able to manipulate Misa enough to get to the point where it just bothered L that he couldn't ever tie it down. And so I think it's to N's benefit that he doesn't know about Misa, because then I think he'd get stuck in the same pit trying to convince the task force that she's second Kira, and it would just become a moot point and would ruin his credibility. So I'm glad that he doesn't know that Misa's there. Glad he doesn't know about her. Good deal. But now Aizawa and them have suspicions about Light. And Nier didn't have to tell Aizawa. Nier asked who the two suspects were, but I think he's already figured it out. So he was just doing it out of, courtesy. And just to make Aizawa feel like he was still in control of the situation. And he's like, oh yeah, I understand. You can't talk about it? Fine. He's like, thank you for your valuable information. And all the dice are pointed onto the 4, which is Japanese number for death. I'm like, haha, fun times. And he's like, especially the part about the Shinigami eyes that enable people to see others' names. So he knows about the Shinigami eyes. Okay. So he knows about the Shinigami eyes. Okay, that's really important. I'm glad Nier knows about that, because that's probably going to affect how they operate now, that they don't want to go out anywhere without a mask on or some way to cover their face. Good. Glad they don't know that. And so glad that they know about that, right? Especially with Teru being involved. And Mello, though, Mello does not know. Mello did not know about the Shinigami eyes. He may have figured it out after Soichiro knew his name but didn't kill him. He may have figured it out. He may have been like, how could he have known my name? And put 2 and 2 together. So Mello may know, but he didn't know before Soichiro came with the death note at that time. So there's that. He's like, it's the first I've heard of it. It will be helpful. Goodbye. Okay. And Aizawa's like, welp, I did my part. And I feel like Aizawa feels like he's got that guilt off of him. He's like, I did what I thought was right. And he's like, and they're like, shouldn't you have pressed a little more? But I'm glad Nier didn't, because I feel like Nier does not want to give away all the cards that he knows, right? He doesn't want to give everything away, which is kind of like L. L liked to show that he was in control and knew and was smart and like had this deductive reasoning skills. But Nier wants to keep things pretty close to the vest. And now that he's nearly died, he's like, oh, gonna be super cautious now. And he's like, I think this cooperation is fine at this rate. Because he's not overstepped. So he's left it open that if Aizawa or Mogi or Ide, Matsuda won't, if any of those 3 come at him with information, he doesn't push. He's just like, oh, thank you. It seems more like a normal police investigation and not something that's like as extreme as what L was doing. He's like, also, I've discovered something very important. And the black dice with the skull. Mm-hmm. Deputy Director Nagami is suspected of being Kira, our parent and child. And I like his face, his smile. It's the only thing it could be. The only reason he would say he'd kill Kira and himself is if there was a connection like that. And so the second L and the one who I think is Kira is Light Yagami. So that's the thing. He knows it's Light. And then, oh my God, Nier with that face lit up. Oh my God. So yeah, he thinks he knows who he is. The problem is, what's he going to do with that information now? That's the problem. What's he going to do with that information? How is he going to try to corner Light? Now that Teru's going to be involved, that's going to be a bit more difficult. What is going to happen with that? How do we deal with that? And so then I give Aizawa props. He told Light the truth. He confessed. And Light just looks at Aizawa like it kind of absolves Aizawa of his sins, right? He's like, he confessed. And Light just has this look in his eyes like he wants to kill him. And Aizawa's just like, come at me, bro. And then he's like, don't worry about it. Like, I suggested it, so what did you say? And I'm curious, Aizawa... And then Light's like, oh, well, I won't ask. That was strange of me to ask about it. Because that would make him seem suspicious. Like, what'd you tell him? Did you talk about me? What'd you say about me? Yeah, mm-hmm. And then, yeah, Aizawa's just like, mm-hmm. Sure, covering your tracks kind of conveniently. And he says, I want to believe that you're not Kira, so sorry for doing this. But I want to observe you until we catch him. Yeah, and Miss Amani as well. And he's like, I'm going to check your room right now. And he says he's going to go there. And everybody's like, oh, and Light's like, well, sure, go right ahead. You're not going to find anything. And Matsuda seems so conflicted, like, what's going on? Yeah, and Light's like, nothing's going to happen there. And I like that Mogi stands up for Aizawa and goes along with them. He's like, I want to make sure as well. He's like, I want to know too. Right? And Aizawa's like, okay, we'll do this together. I love, they're like, it would be best if Light isn't Kira. Well, of course it would be best if Light isn't Kira. That means you've been working with a guy and giving all of your police resources to Kira for 6 years. yeah, it'd be great if he wasn't. But they want to be sure if Amane has any evidence linking her to Kira, if that happens, which it won't because Light's already taken care of that, right? And so them going to the apartment, Amane showing up with the skimpy outfit on, I'm like, girl, oh girl, what we doing? And of course they're like, well, she's waiting on Light to get home. And she can't have the notebook on her while dressed like that. Again, if they just did a strip search of Light, this whole series would be over. Be done. And it's funny because her expressions and the way that she's animated, it goes back to her seeming much more innocent now that she doesn't have the death note. She just has like a much more ditzier appearance now that the death note memories are gone. And Light's like, you can search as much as you like, Aizawa. You won't find the notebook. And yeah, they look everywhere. I like that they conveniently said it was like a bomb threat, which they wanted to make sure it wasn't a prank, right? Mm-hmm. And Matsuda's like, man, the mood in here is pretty dour. Anybody want to hear a joke? And Ide's like, this is not funny. Poor Matsuda. He's just trying to be a good guy. And what gets me is that we just established in the last episode how awful Kira's kingdom is and Demagawa is, but they turned on the TV anyway to watch him. I'm like, Matsuda. Like, just that sheep mentality. I'm like, dude, what? You guys just established what an awful person he was in the last episode, and you still want to watch him. And he's like gotten to the point where he has like the cape and everything on, and he's taken all the money that he took from the helicopter ride. Oh my God, the voice of Kira. Mm-hmm. And Light's just looking over here like, this guy is the voice of me? No. Like, just Kira shares its name with this program. And Light's just like, I don't care. But they're building this temple for Kira, the architect's concept, this gaudy temple for Kira. Mm-hmm. When it's completed. And like the likeness they gave Kira, it has like these slender angel arms, but has like a big flowing beard and the wings. It looks so gaudy. Let's welcome Kira here. Like, just so gaudy. I think at that point, Light was like, you didn't imagine me as like a Bishounen sex symbol? Oh, we can't have this. He's just like, we can't have this. He has to go. You didn't make me a beautiful Bishounen statue? No, we must go. No, can't have this. And then God, but the look of Misa looking up at the detectives after they've searched, she just looks like a marionette. She just looks like a doll. And they're like, we didn't find anything in here. And she's like, is everything all right? And they're like, yeah, it must have been a prank. And so they decide that somebody's going to stay. And she says, oh, and he's like, well, just in case, one of us is going to stay back and keep watch over you for the next few days. And she says, thanks. And then at first, Mogi is sent back and Aizawa says he's going to stay. But then Misa says, well, why Monchichi instead of Mochi? And he's like, well, don't you trust me? And she says, that's not it. It's just, you're not him without your fro. And Mogi actually laughs at that. He's like, ah. And he's like, well, Mogi, he's like, yes. He's like, oh, sorry. He's like, you stay here. So, interesting, right? He's like, we need everyone to donate 1 million yen in order to complete the construction of Kira's kingdom. So this temple that they're building, right? And Demagawa wants donations. Donations to build a temple. Well, now, here's the thing. I don't think it's the building of the temple that Light is against, right? But it's the fact that Demagawa is doing it without Light telling him to. It's the fact that Demagawa is acting on his own for himself. Light is a super control freak, and he's like, I didn't order this building of this temple. I didn't ask you to do this. Why are you acting on my behalf? I didn't give you those commands. And the thing of it is that Demagawa, he makes it sound phony. To the others, it will tarnish the name and fear associated with Kira. Because, yeah, that's the thing. Light's like, well, people are going to stop following Kira if this phony baloney is spouting nonsense and asking for donations, they're going to stop believing in me. That's not what I want. He's like, it's no different from any other suspicious group. It makes Kira into just any other typical religious cult, where people are going to be like, oh, well, that's no different than this religious cult or this, so it's not really a thing anymore, right? It's going to make people, it's going to ruin the image and the fear that Kira had established. Because Matsuda says it doesn't seem like Kira. Yeah, Light wants to be different than other religions. It's not even that Light even wants to be a religion. He just wants to have justice and be a god. He doesn't want necessarily a religion to worry about. He just wants to pass judgment and then people fear him. That's like really the thing. And Light's like, he's doing things on his own. And Ryuk's like, and that's when Ryuk gives the Shinigami eyes to Teru. People will begin to drift away from Kira if he does this. Yeah, Light's like, you're not good enough. You're not doing things the way I want you to. And people are going to stop following me because they don't like you and you're lame. So, he's like, no. And that's when we see Mikami. And I was like, wait, who's this other person? Mikami. And then Light's like, okay, I no longer need Demagawa. I wanted to get that close-up of Mikami's eyes. But yeah, here's the thing. Light realizes he doesn't need Demagawa anymore. He used him for a short period of time, and now he doesn't need him. He's fulfilled his usefulness. Oh my god. But that close-up of Mikami's eyes, it looked like L! For a split second, I was like, why did we have L on the screen? But it wasn't. Nope. He's like, I no longer need Demagawa, but I can't just kill him myself. It will seem too suspicious. Yeah, and Ide's watching him being like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do, Light? What's going to happen? And then that's when Aizawa shows back up. And he said they couldn't find it anywhere. We didn't find a notebook in Light and Misa's apartment. He says, and I wanted to hear what Aizawa was going to say. And Light assumes that what he's saying is, oh, you can still watch over me until you're satisfied. It's fine. And he's like, okay. And then it's like Kira's kingdom's executive members that he's handpicked. And that's not going to float Light's boat at all, because Light's like, I didn't approve these people. We didn't have a search committee meeting for this. And that's when Mikami starts to kill them off one by one. And just says, and God, he's really hot. I'm terrified of him. I'm absolutely terrified of him. It's like if L was super hot. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like where this is going. No. I'm like, oh no. But yeah, he's like super attractive. I don't know how to feel about this. But he just says, he says delete. Doesn't even give you those names. He's like, just delete. Oh my God. Yeah, and he just dies. And then he just goes one by one because he can see their names on there. He can see their names. And then, yeah, he's like, well, together with Kira, we'll... And then he says, delete! He's terrifying! Nope! And then he sees it, and then I'm like, what the hell is this action of, like, he looks... Oh, God. He's terrifying. Like, doing the action of, like, the martial arts spin with the names. Like, what is happening? Why? I'm actively terrified of Teru. I'm actively terrified of him. Delete. Oh my God. And then he says delete. And they all just topple down the stairs. And then Demagawa dies. Oh my God. As he like walks down looking terrifying. And he says, please save me. And he's not actually there with Demagawa. But he has like the green associated with the green and blues. And he says delete. I mean, he's freaking badass, but terrifying, right? Terrifying. And everybody's like, what just happened? Okay, what is this? Why would Kira kill his supporters? He wanted to stop them from going overboard. Maybe. And of course, Light says, that might be so. Like, could you make yourself more suspicious to Ide and Aizawa? He's like, but this is horrible. I love this, like, this is horrible. Just God. And Aizawa just looking at him like, what is the meaning of this? There was no chance for Misa or Light to use the notebook. And Light, of course, is like, Mikami, I can definitely use him. I made the right choice. I'm gonna be questionable of that. So Light is saying that Light is going to use him as his right hand. Okay. We'll talk about this in just a second, but saying he understands Kira's thoughts and ideals and what he does and doesn't want. So he thinks that Mikami, he is a like-minded when it comes to Kira's ideals. He thinks that he believes in the justice that Kira is promoting and is an apt worshiper, right? He does what he does and doesn't want. He takes action without orders. And so what did he say there? What did he just say there? Did he just say he takes action without orders? He understands Kira's thoughts, ideals, what he does and doesn't want. He takes action without orders. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Takes action without orders. He's like, I've met someone that's just as insane as I am with this God complex. We're talking about that. He's like, I made Misa relinquish ownership of the Death Note. Misa's lost all memory of the Death Note. And I've sent the Death Note to someone else. Right now, she can't answer questions about it. She's just an ordinary woman. And the bird's like going crazy in the cage. And she's just sitting there looking like a doll. She's just a doll. An ordinary woman. Because that was Light's whole thing. He only stuck with Misa because she was extraordinary. Because he only stuck with her because she was, someone that he feared. I think Light did fear Misa because she could technically kill him. So he's like, if I don't keep her under my thumb and convince her that I love her all the time, then she's going to possibly kill me or leave me and do her own thing. And Misa, her ideals were not maybe, she says she was in line with Kira's ideals and with Light, but he wasn't sure, I don't feel. And so now he can just ignore her and treat her, he can just leave her in the cage like a bird and just watch over her and make sure she doesn't do anything stupid, but he doesn't have to worry about her anymore. He thinks that Teru can take action because Misa had to be ordered to do things. He had to give her orders. Otherwise, she maybe was sloppy sometimes or could make a mistake. But Teru's a damn prosecutor. He's like a lawyer. He knows how to cheat the system. The question is, the next owner. He called upon Kira through the television. Okay, so he was trying to he has brown eyes. He looks, again, like Light and Elle had a baby. He's like, he worships Kira from the bottom of his heart. And it says, Kira's Kingdom Viewer Survey. Do you want to participate in the next show? Yes. So they had a survey go out and to interview for the next Kira. Oh my God. He understands that he was chosen just by accepting the notebook. And he's been to all the things. Born June 7th. He's a damn, I don't know, he's a Gemini! You gotta watch them Geminis! I'm like, he's born June 7th, he's a Gemini. Geminis, there's two sides. Oh, okay. And then, yeah, he was always in the background. He's a prosecutor. Yep. So he knows the legal system. There was nothing wrong with my selection. So you say, Teru Mikami, Kyoto Prefecture. He's worthy of becoming Kira's right hand. Oh my God. And he's like, Shinigami, thank you for coming. Oh my God. So yeah, so he's a prosecutor. So he knows the justice system. He knows law. That was the thing with Misa. Misa had this idealistic view of Kira and what Kira was doing, but this guy's a lawyer. He knows the justice system. So him worshiping Kira is kind of terrifying because he knows how the system works. He's ideal because he can get around things within the law. He can kind of get around the police. That's kind of terrifying, but he's never met Light. That we're going to talk about this in a second. Now I can punish evildoers with death. So yeah, he kind of shares Light's views. He shares Light's views. Okay. We'll talk about this in a minute. With death, what is Kira to you? And he's just touching the Death Note with such reverence. It's God. Okay, so at this point, I do have reservations about Teru because I'm like, Light, did you just make a really big mistake? I was like, oh, Light, oh no. Because this is kind of the thing with Misa versus Teru, right? Okay, on paper, Teru seems like the perfect person for Light. He's like, we both believe the same thing about justice. We both have been involved in the law system and the justice system, from Light from his father and from Teru with his occupation. So, and he's 27, so he's a little bit older than Light. So he's like, we both know how the justice system works. We're both displeased with it. And we both realize the Death Note is a way that we can enact justice and kill the evildoers and do that. So to Light, he's like, oh, this is perfect. And he believes that Kira is a god. So Light is thinking, this guy believes the same thing I do. We both have the same goals and he worships me. I'm perfect. Perfect. And the best part to Light is he's like, because he has the same ideals as me and we're like-minded, he's like, he'll be the perfect right hand because he'll just be enacting and just taking actions without me having to order him. He can stop all of the people from stopping Kira. He can see them now. He has the Shinigami eyes. He can enact justice. If near anybody does anything that would be against me, then he'll take action against it because he believes I'm a god. Demigawa was just in it for the money and the fame. Demigawa did not worship Kira. Demigawa just wanted to push his own agenda under the guise of Kira to gain followers and reputation. So Demigawa, Light knew he could use him to a point, but at some point Demigawa was going to have the boot. He was going to have to go. And then we reached that point. But with Teru, Light's like, oh, this guy's not in it for the money. He's not in it for fame. He believes the same thing I do. So as long as he worships me, he's going to stop all these criminals and things. I don't have to do anything now. Light's like, we're fine. He's like, I can sit back and be innocent of being Kira because this guy is basically me. He's going to do whatever I want. He's going to do the job for me. I can go retire I can go to the Kokomos with Misa, retire and just be on my way. And now they can't suspect me and it's fine. And Nier will be proven wrong. Because now Teru is going to be Kira, and Nier won't be able to pinpoint Teru, so problem solved. And yeah, that seems like, it's so frustrating because it seems at the end of this episode that Light's won. At the end of every episode, it seems like Light's won. Because it's just like, this guy now Nier would have to start back from square one, because now the task force is going to be like, well, it clearly isn't Misa and Light that's killing these people. So I guess Light really isn't Kira and Nier's wrong. And they won't trust Nier anymore. So on the surface, it seems like Light's won and that Nier is not going to be trusted by the task force and we're back to square one and we've got 6 episodes left. But I will say this. But there is a big difference between Teru and Misa that I think could come back to bite Light in the butt. And the big thing is their connection with Light. Misa was in love with Light. She idolized Kira and was a follower of Kira, but she loved Light Yagami. And maybe loved him as Kira, but she did love Light Yagami. And so no matter what, Light could control her and make her do whatever he wanted because there was that love. There was that connection, right? That human connection. Light has no connection to Teru. He's just given Teru this death note and is like, oh, you're like me. You'll do exactly what I want. Don't have to worry about it. But I'm like, what happens? Because this whole thing, he takes actions without orders. That seems great for Light because Light knows that he's going to enact his ideals without him having to give orders. So there's no communication there. So the link is severed. Nier can't make a connection. The task force can't make a connection. Seems like Light's off scot-free. But what happens if Teru decides... That's the thing. Once you start using the Death Note, it alters you as a person. So we saw how Light's been altered by using the Death Note over time. What if Teru decides that I have the power of Kira? I'm a god. We can't have 2 of you. What if he starts doing things... What I'm saying is, what if Teru starts doing things that don't line up with what Light believes is justice? And then Light tries to interfere and Teru's like, oh no, I'm God of this new world. Not you, Light. It's me. Not you. And then what does Light do? Because yeah, there's no love there. Misa loved Light, so she would never take the mantle of Kira for herself because she wanted to help Light in everything that he did. Well, now he's just kind of throwing her to the side like a rag doll, being like, I don't need you anymore. You're no use to me. Demigawa, he's dead. What if Teru decides, I'm the god of this new world. And Light's like, well, but I am. And Teru's like, mm-mm. And there's no love lost there between them, so what do we do? I feel like Light, in thinking that he's made Teru his right-hand man, I feel like Light's just created another enemy for himself and he's not realized it yet. Because I'm like, it's getting away. The control's getting away. I'm like, I don't know. He thinks he has Teru under his thumb, but does he? Teru seems terrifying. Seems terrifying. I'm worried for Mello. I'm worried for Nier. I'm worried for a lot of people because Teru isn't connected to any of them. And I'm going to get into real quick Banana Fish spoilers. As soon as I was talking about this in the discussion, I immediately thought of Fox and Golzine. Because Golzine had all these people under his thumb doing his bidding. And a lot of them were discarded along the way, but he hired Fox thinking Fox would be his right-hand man, right? He hired Fox thinking he'd be his right-hand man and would get rid of Ash, or bring Ash to him, right? And that he was still in control of the situation. But by the end of the series, Fox was like, I don't need you anymore. I used you to get to this place. Now I'm going to kill Ash. Bye, and shoots Golzine. And yeah, in the end, Golzine ends up killing Fox at the cost of his own life. So I'm like, I get the same vibes with Teru. I thought initially that Mello and Nier gave off the Fox vibes. It's Teru. Teru is totally giving Fox Banana Fish vibes, where he's come in and Light's like Golzini, thinks he's going to use Teru, and he's like, oh, Teru's super strong and powerful, perfect opportunity for me, and then it bites him in the face. And I feel like Teru is going to bite the hand that feeds him. And the thing of it is, Teru doesn't even know Light. I mean, I'm sure there's a letter there explaining everything, and he thinks right now he's serving Kira as a devout follower, but once he starts getting a taste of the power that the Death Note gives him, and he already has way more moves with that damn pin than Light did, I'm like, is he going to realize, oh, why am I following Kira when I could be Kira? Why would I worship this god when I could be that? That's what I'm worried about. I'm like, I think that this may have been a bad move on Light's part. Right now, it seems like Light's just cleared him of everything. Cleared himself of everything. But, God, way to make it more complicated. Way to make it more complicated, right? So yeah, it's fine. It's fine, right? Way to make it more complicated, but I don't know. I'm just like, I feel Teru is terrifying, and I feel like Light, I'm like, did you make another boo-boo and not realize it? So I don't know. I'm worried about everybody now that Teru is involved, because I don't know where this is headed. Hoo boy. So please no spoilers, but I'm excited to hear your comments down below and what you all thought of this episode. I'm ready for the Teru is hot comments because it's there. It's there. It's so there. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Death Note.